This cheeky little British Trout Association trout fillet, look at that, it's lovely, it's quite big. Yours might be a bit smaller, but this is where it's going. You know, we're getting bigger and bigger trout fillets, which is much, much nicer, much more meaty, much more tasty. I'm gonna skin it, I'm gonna marinate it with some nice tandoori style marinade using some yogurt, some salt, some fennel, some chili powder, garlic, ginger, turmeric. I'm gonna grind that all up together, make a lovely paste, spread that over the fish, leave it for an hour or two, and then it's gonna go directly onto hot charcoal out on the fire pit, and that's gonna give us a really nice, authentic sort of Indian tandoori kind of feel to it. We're gonna do that with some flatbreads, a little bit of quick pickled red onion, and some yogurt. Delicious. I need to get my seeds toasted, so I've got a little saucepan, and I'm gonna toast a teaspoon or so of fennel seeds, and roughly the same caraway. Now I'm not going to toast the powdered spices because they'll burn. So just pop those on the stove, give them a minute or two to get them where they need to be. While that's happening, I'll just peel this ginger and then a couple of cloves of fresh garlic. Just bash them to help get the skins off and release the flavour. So just going to bash them up nicely. I don't want them to be completely powdered, we could just use powdered spices. I want a little bit of texture in there. That's going to lend a little bit of complexity to the palate when the dish is finished, so it doesn't taste too homogenized and samey. Good pinch of salt, about a teaspoon of chili powder. You could use fresh chili if you wanted to. Another good teaspoon of turmeric. And then I want the ginger and the garlic, so I really want those finely minced up. I don't want too much texture to those. So I'm going to start by finely slicing the garlic, roughly the same amount of ginger, maybe a little bit more, and then just going to chop that up nicely so that we get it quite finely chopped. Well, finely for me anyway. That goes in the grinder with everything else, and we'll start to grind that to a paste, and then we'll add some yogurt. So just combining the spices with the garlic and the ginger in my pestle and mortar here. You could do it in a little, little whizzer blender, little food blender if you wanted to. About 50 grams of yogurt, something like that, a couple of tablespoons anyway. Enough to carry those flavours and transport them to the fish. I sometimes put cashew nuts in here, Blitz cashew nuts as well, but I'm going to leave this version nut-free. I don't really want the skin on this fish, because I don't want to have to faff about trying to get it off afterwards, and it's not going to go that nice in the fire. So in this instance, I'm going to remove it. So I'm just going to use my sharp knife, start at the thin end of the fillet, work the knife down between the flesh and the skin so it's nice and tight to the skin, and then just wiggle the knife along nice and flat. Take the skin off. We keep that, put that to one side, can make some little bits of crispy skin with that at a later date. And then I'm just going to put some of the marinade on the fish. No substitute for fingers in this situation, but just gently, because I don't want to damage or break up the fish too much. We'll just pop that on there. If you wanted to, if your fish wasn't, super firm and lovely, you could lightly salt it first so that you drew out some of the moisture and toughened the flesh up a little bit. My delicious trout tandoori is going to need a couple of little garnishes to go with it. And I think one thing that would be really nice is some yogurt with some mint and some coriander. This is Vietnamese coriander. It's a bit different to the regular coriander, but regular coriander will be fine. This is kind of like regular coriander on steroids if you want. And I think some quick pickled onions as well will be really nice, some red onion with a bit of sweetness to it. So to do that, I'm gonna use some cider vinegar, and I'm gonna sweeten the cider vinegar with a little bit of brown sugar. Now, I don't need a lot of this mixture because I'm only gonna do 1 onion. So I've got about a tablespoon of light brown sugar and about 2 or 3 tablespoons of cider vinegar. I'm just gonna quickly bring that up to the boil on the stovetop. That's an old-fashioned trick. We call that a gas trick in chef land. Not that that matters to you. We're just gonna take my onion and I'm gonna slice it nice and finely. So I just get my onions and I just drop them into my hot vinegar and sugar. We're off the heat now. A little bit of salt, twist of pepper. Smoosh those around a little bit. The yogurt, of course, couldn't be simpler. I'm gonna get some of my nice Vietnamese coriander and a couple of leaves of mint. I don't want it to be too minty, not over minty. And then I'm just gonna shred that up nicely. Natural yogurt. You could use coconut yogurt if you were, you know, dodging the dairy. Stir that in. So, tandoori trout fillets. I'm going to cook these after their nice marinade directly in the coals. Now you need to wait until the coals have gone down a bit. They're super hot. They're covered in a nice white colour. I've raked them out a bit to spread them out. I'm going to put this straight in there. The thing to remember is that when it comes out or when you've turned it over, you'll be some bits of coal and whatnot stuck to it, but don't worry, it'll just take a little minute to pick those off, and the smoky flavour that you get in reward is just so good. If you don't want to do this, obviously you could do them on a grill, but they're just a bit nicer right down in the coals. So I'll cook a couple of nice big chunky bits, nice and charcoaled. Don't let them cook too much or you'll never turn them over. Just going to leave it to rest now, so that it's nicely cooked, and while it's still warm I'll finish tidying it up and serve it up. So I just tidied up the last few little bits of charcoal off that hot fish. I've got a nice little flatbread. I'm going to take a nice piece of that. I had a little nibble, it's really delicious. A little bit of that. Some of my sweet, quick pickled red onions. Some of that really nice mint and Vietnamese coriander yogurt. Little squeeze of lemon. Oh. Tell me you don't want that for lunch.